On September 8, 1944, at 12:15 p.m. London, the sky was gray and a light mist covered the city. The streets bustled with people hurrying about their daily business, unaware that disaster was moments away. Suddenly, a sharp whoosh cut through the air, unlike the sound of an aircraft or bomb. Before anyone could react, an explosion shook the ground. The V-2 rocket had struck. A building near Lewisham Market collapsed instantly, a cloud of debris and smoke filling the air. In less than a second, an entire high-rise crumbled. The streets erupted in chaos. Smoke, flames, and the smell of explosives overwhelmed the area. The first ever ballistic missile, the V-2, launched from a mobile platform in the Netherlands, hundreds of kilometers away, had struck London. No warning, no sound of engines, just pure destruction from above. This wasn't just another bombing raid. This was a weapon of the future, a missile capable of striking without detection, a deadly blow from the sky. The flames, the screams, the terror. People fled as London experienced the beginning of a new kind of warfare. The V-2 was a sign of things to come, a future where war would no longer be fought with soldiers, but with missiles that soared through the air, unseen and unstoppable. The V-2 rocket was unlike any weapon the world had seen. A ballistic missile capable of traveling hundreds of kilometers at supersonic speeds, striking without warning. Developed by Werner von Braun and Nazi Germany in 1944, it blurred the line between science fiction and reality. Over 14 meters tall and weighing 12,500 kilograms, the V-2 carried a 1,000-kilogram warhead, enough to destroy entire city blocks. Fueled by ethanol and liquid oxygen, it reached speeds above 5,760 kilometers per hour and altitudes near 189 kilometers, almost touching the edge of space. What made it terrifying wasn't just size or speed, it was psychological impact. Unlike bombs or artillery, the V-2 arrived silently, giving no warning. Londoners first called them mysterious explosions before realizing the scale of the threat. No radar, anti-aircraft gun, or fighter could stop it. Its gyroscope-guided system made strikes incredibly precise for the 1940s. About 3,000 rockets were launched, each representing enormous effort, resources, and human cost. For Germany, it was a symbol of hope and desperation. For the world, it was a warning. The sky itself had become a battlefield. The V-2 was more than a weapon. It was instantaneous destruction, terror, and the dawn of a new era of warfare. By 1944, Germany was on the brink of collapse. The Allies had landed in Normandy on June 6, 1944, opening a Western front, while Soviet forces pushed relentlessly from the east. German cities were shattered by relentless bombing raids, factories destroyed, and civilians living in constant fear. Morale was plummeting, and Hitler demanded a wonder weapon, something to reverse the tide of war and strike fear into the hearts of the Allies. The V-2 rocket became Germany's answer to this desperate plea. It was not just a weapon of destruction, but a psychological hammer designed to terrorize civilians, disrupt cities, and crush morale. Londoners called the explosions mysterious thunder, unable to comprehend how a weapon could arrive silently from the sky, faster than sound itself. Antwerp, too, would later face the same invisible nightmare. Germany faced staggering obstacles. Resources were scarce. Allied bombings had crippled factories. Engineers worked under extreme secrecy. relying on forced labor from concentration camps. Each V-2 was a monumental effort, combining cutting-edge science with immense human cost. Every launch symbolized the intersection of genius and tragedy. The Allies had never seen anything like it. No radar could detect the missiles in time. Anti-aircraft guns were useless. Fighters could not intercept them. It was a weapon that defied conventional defense, turning the skies into a deadly, invisible battlefield. The V-2 was faster, higher, and more unpredictable than any threat faced in previous wars. For Germany, the V-2 represented both hope and desperation. Leaders clung to it as a tool that could break Allied morale, even as the nation teetered on the edge. For the world, it was a warning. Modern warfare had entered a terrifying new era, where technology could strike without warning, and terror itself became a weapon. The V-2 was not just a response to military pressure, it was a symbol of the extremes of total war, where human ingenuity and suffering collided. It marked a turning point in history. The war was no longer fought only on battlefields. It had expanded into the sky, the cities, and the very minds of civilians, forever changing how nations would wage conflict. The V-2 was a technological marvel of its time, the world's first long-range ballistic missile. Standing 14 meters tall, weighing 12,500 kilograms, and powered by a liquid-fueled engine, it could reach speeds over 5,760 kilometers per hour, faster than any fighter plane, and strike targets up to 320 kilometers away. Unlike conventional bombs dropped from planes, the V-2 followed a ballistic trajectory. It rose above the atmosphere, peaking at 188 kilometers high before plummeting onto its target. No anti-aircraft guns, fighters, or radar of the era could intercept it. Civilians only heard the supersonic crack moments before impact, and by then, it was too late. In comparison, the Allies' heaviest bombers, such as the B-17 Flying Fortress, carried payloads of up to 4,500 kilograms, but were slow, vulnerable to flak and fighters, and required extensive planning to reach targets. The V-2, by contrast, required no aircrew, no flight path planning, and could strike deep into enemy territory with pinpoint accuracy. The V-2's guidance system relied on gyroscopes and accelerometers, revolutionary for the 1940s. While not perfectly accurate, it far outclassed any artillery or rocket system of the time and instilled a new kind of fear in the civilian population. The psychological impact was immense. A weapon that could hit anywhere in London or Antwerp without warning. Germany produced over 3,000 V-2s between 1944 and 1945. A remarkable feat given the constant Allied bombings, resource scarcity, and technical challenges. Each missile represented cutting-edge engineering, human ingenuity, and also the immense suffering of forced laborers. A grim reminder that technological triumph came at a terrible human cost. Simply put, the V-2 was incomparable to any other weapon of World War II. It was faster, higher, and deadlier than anything the Allies had, a harbinger of the missile age, and a testament to how desperation and innovation could combine to create a game-changing, terrifying weapon. It was a quiet night on September 8, 1944 in London. The city was still reeling from months of bombing, but the people had grown accustomed to the familiar drone of sirens and distant explosions. Among them was Private Edward Harris, a young air raid warden tasked with guiding civilians to shelters. Suddenly, the ground trembled. At first, Harris thought it was another conventional bomb, but then came the supersonic crack, a sound unlike anything he had ever heard. He barely had time to drop to the ground as the V-2 rocket struck just a few streets away, flattening homes and scattering debris. He could see flames erupting from the surrounding buildings, hear the screams of those trapped, and smell the acrid smoke choking the air. Thousands of Londoners faced the same invisible terror. No warning, no chance to intercept, just the terrifying realization that death could arrive silently from the sky. Harris helped pull survivors from the rubble, their faces etched with shock and disbelief. Mothers clutched children, neighbors embraced each other, all struggling to comprehend the new scale of destruction unleashed by a weapon no one could fight. Meanwhile, in Peenemünde, Germany, Werner von Braun and his engineers watched each launch with both pride and dread. The V-2 was working as intended, breaking records of speed, altitude, and psychological impact. Yet each success was shadowed by the cost. Thousands of forced laborers had perished building these machines, and the war was still turning against Germany. The V-2 transformed warfare in a way no previous weapon had. It bypassed soldiers, guns, and defenses, striking directly at civilians and industrial centers. For Harris and for the people of London, it was a terrifying glimpse into the future of war, where ingenuity, technology, and human suffering intertwined in a silent, invisible assault from the skies. This night would stay with Harris forever. The V-2 was more than a weapon. It was a manifestation of desperation, brilliance, and the horrors of total war, leaving an imprint not only on cities but on the minds and hearts of those who survived. By late September 1944, London had already endured months of bombings, but the V-2 rockets brought a new, unprecedented terror. On the night of September 12th, the city awoke to a soundless threat. The missiles were invisible until impact. One V-2 struck the Woolwich district, a densely populated industrial area. In an instant, entire blocks crumbled. Factories were reduced to rubble, and the streets became a scene of chaos. Emergency crews struggled against fire, smoke, and debris. Over 150 civilians were killed, hundreds injured, their homes obliterated in moments. The psychological impact was just as devastating. Londoners realized no shelter, no warning siren could protect them from this new weapon. Across the English Channel, Allied commanders were stunned. Traditional air defenses, fighters, anti-aircraft guns, radar, were utterly useless against a weapon that traveled faster than sound and followed a ballistic path beyond interception. The V-2's strikes forced strategic reconsiderations. Bombers could no longer guarantee the safety of cities, and the Allies had to rethink civil defense entirely. Meanwhile, in Germany, the engineers at Peenemünde watched their creation with a mixture of pride and unease. The rockets were successful beyond measure, yet their destructive power highlighted a grim truth. Technology alone could not win a war already slipping away. Every success in London was a propaganda victory, but a military stalemate loomed on the Western Front. The V-2 campaign marked the first time in history a weapon bypassed the battlefield entirely, striking civilians with precision and terror. It reshaped warfare psychology, forcing the world to acknowledge that the future of combat would include long-range, unstoppable weapons. By the end of September 1944, the V-2 had claimed over 1,100 lives in Britain, destroyed thousands of homes, and left an indelible mark on both soldiers and civilians. For London, it was a nightmarish taste of a new era of war, a chilling warning that technology, when wielded without restraint, could turn innovation into sheer terror. The V-2 rocket campaign was not just a military operation, it was a revelation about the future of warfare. For the first time, humans had created a weapon that could strike directly at the heart of a city, bypassing armies and battle lines, arriving silently from the sky, faster than the speed of sound. The terror in London was immediate, yet it was only the beginning of a broader strategic lesson. The rockets demonstrated unprecedented technological brilliance. German engineers at Peenemünde had designed a weapon of precision, power, and mobility, laying the foundation for space exploration and modern rocketry. Every successful launch showcased not only ingenuity, but also the terrifying potential of technology divorced from strategic sense. Despite their sophistication, these missiles could not win the war. They drained resources, manpower, and time from a nation already on the brink of collapse. Psychologically, the V-2 changed the relationship between war and human perception. Unlike conventional bombs, which could be seen, heard, or intercepted, the rockets arrived without warning, invisible, unstoppable, sowing fear and helplessness. Civilians, soldiers, and leaders alike realized that modern conflict was no longer confined to battlefields. War now reached into homes, workplaces, and the very minds of nations. Strategically, the V-2 forced a paradigm shift in military thinking. Allies understood that defense against weapons of the future required innovation beyond guns and planes. Intelligence, radar, and counter-technology became as crucial as manpower. Governments began to confront the ethical implications of targeting civilians indirectly, knowing that the line between combatants and non-combatants was blurring. In the broader sweep of history, the V-2 heralded the nuclear and missile age. Its destructive power foreshadowed intercontinental missiles, instant global strike, and the moral dilemmas of technological warfare. London's ruined streets, the terror etched into civilian memory, and the sense of inevitability all served as a warning for generations to come. Brilliance in science carries responsibility, and unchecked innovation can produce horrors beyond imagination. Ultimately, the V-2 teaches a timeless lesson. War is no longer about numbers alone. It is about knowledge, psychology, and technology. The weapon was a harbinger of the future, a reminder that genius without humanity can create nightmares that echo through history. For historians, strategists, engineers, and society at large, the V-2 is a chilling testament that the true cost of innovation is measured not only in lives lost, but in the fear, despair, and moral challenges it imposes on the human spirit. As the echoes of the V-2 rocket fade into the shadows of history, one truth becomes clear. World War II was not only a battle of armies, but a battlefield of ideas, innovation, and human will. Every missile launched, every engineer who worked tirelessly, every civilian who endured terror contributed to a story that continues to shape our world. The V-2 rockets remind us that history is filled with untold stories, hidden moments of genius, courage, and sacrifice that remain unseen by most. To truly understand the scale and the stakes of this global conflict, one must look beyond the textbooks, beyond the dates and numbers, and into the human experiences that defined an era. Join us as we uncover these chapters, the silent victories, the innovations that reshaped warfare, the heroes whose names were almost forgotten. Step into the shadows of history where every story, every decision, and every invention reveals lessons as relevant today as they were 8 decades ago. The V-2 is more than a weapon. It is a reminder, a warning, and a call to witness history in its most raw and revealing form. Discover the untold, understand the extraordinary, and explore the depths of World War II with us at Oblivion Archive.